So we're going to look at the topic of self-worth, and ways that you can think about this is how I view myself, right? One of the things that we do as human beings is have a self-perception. We kind of have termed it as value, self-worth. We almost look at it numerically. Like if I were to say rate yourself from 1 to 10, right? There's this process that we go through. And I want to talk about that process, and I want to talk about its damaging effects if not done properly. I mean, because I think it's critical for us to understand that how we view ourselves will affect the rest of our lives. It'll affect every relationship, it'll affect everything that we do, it'll affect how we function in our job, it'll affect everything. And so, how do we determine our self-worth or our value, and how do we do it properly? And the reason why this is really, really important, because if we look at American culture today, self-worth and value is at an all-time low. We have more people in the United States medicated because of anxiety and depression, and a lot of that is about how they see themselves in the world they live in, and they just want to be numb to it. We've seen the effects on teenage kids and college kids. We've seen the number of suicides that have increased over the last decade, all having to do with how I see me in this big world out there, and whether I matter or don't matter, and hence I want to talk about the process. So if you've got a piece of paper or if you've got something to write on, I would encourage you, and if you got something to share, I think that we might need it. Do you have some paper? Yeah. Okay, cool. So you're gonna do several circles, but I want you to we want to start with this. I want you to draw a circle, and then I want you to put your name in it. All right. So my name is Tom. Right. So put a circle there, and then I want us to start thinking about who am I? Who am I, and how am I going to go through this process of analysis, self-evaluation, right? And so one of the things that I do is I start doing this. I say, well, okay, I'm a pastor, and I'm a husband, and I'm a father. Now you got to do it with you. So you got to start putting some things in there. You might be a student. You might be a grandma. I'm a papa, right? I'm a board president. I'm a friend. I'm a sibling. And there's more circles. We can continue to add to the circles because many of us play a lot. We got a lot of things going on in our lives. So here's what I want us to understand. That one, I think this is very American. And it's part of our problem. I want you to see that when we start filling up this circle, and I were to say to you, rate yourself from 1 to 10 as you see yourself today. In milliseconds, your mind begins to do some things. First, it starts bouncing in all those circles and starts to put a number in. Right? I can't just put one number in. I got to put a number in as what kind of dad am I? Because I'm a dad. I got to put a number in as what kind of a husband am I today? I got to put a number in as to what kind. You see what I'm saying? So in milliseconds, I'm putting numbers in there of how I feel I'm doing, how you might be feeling as you're doing as a friend or as a mother or as a whatever. You see what I'm saying? And then in milliseconds, I start putting numbers in there about how people think I am. Because they all have opinions. I mean, just ask them. Just ask them. Ask your friends what kind of a friend you are. Ask your kids what kind of a mother you are. Everyone, so now the noise is getting louder and louder when everybody's got a number to put in. And I think everyone in this room would realize that as I go through this process, nothing happens to that number except it moves downward. Because I'm never a 10 in all of them. Never. I'm probably never a 10 in most of them. Especially if I listen to the voices outside of me, if I listen to other people. The third thing we do, so what I did, you listen to your own voice, you listen to the voices of others. So first of all, your own voice, others' voices, and then one of the most damaging ones is that we go through a process of comparison. I'm not a mom like that mom. I'm not a student like that student. I'm not a dad like that dad. We go through a process of comparison. Right? There's always someone stronger, there's always someone more beautiful, there's always somebody, you know what I mean? There's always somebody that's doing it better than I am. And again, so we go through this, our own voice, we go through the voice of others, and then we go through this process of comparison, and I'm telling you, it happens in milliseconds. And already we start to suffocate on the idea of, you want me to put a number in there. And I've done this presentation with young kids and adults alike, and I want you to understand, every time that I've done this with teenagers, and I simply ask them to write their number on a separate piece of paper with no name, just so I could see it, the average number for junior high and high school kids is about 4.5. In order for you to get an average of 4.5, you realize what some of the numbers need to be? I once had a kid ask, can I put a negative number in? I mean, what do you do if you're not a star athlete? What if you're not a homecoming queen? What if everything that is measured as valuable out there in society, you don't meet it? I mean, what if you're just a number? What if worse than that, people don't know you exist? You're not even in the chess club. You're not even in anything. And so I'm wondering if this is the best way to be doing this, right? I mean, this is where, and I got some of this, I think, when I did it a long time ago. I did this time management thing. I don't know if it was Franklin Covey or what it was, but they had this diagram, and it's affected me my whole life, and I think I've morphed it a bit, and what you're seeing today is part of that. So I want you to see 3 different circles. All real life circles. So a mom comes to me for counseling. A mom comes to me for counseling because her children are all in their teenage years. And these darn kids are wanting independence. I mean, she was the model mom. I mean, she had the minivan. I swear every day she must put an apron on, and bake fresh food for the kids, and had everything just the way it was supposed to be, and it was all, I mean, and here she is in a state of anxiety and depression. And all of a sudden I realized that her identity was being a mom. And soon she was realizing those kids were going to leave her. Just within years. Who am I then? I mean, what happened was husband was sacrificed. Friends were sacrificed. Everything is squeezed to the edges or non-existent because now she's a mom. That's my identity. It's who I am. But just a couple years from now, I'm not going to be. Not in the way that I've created my identity. And so now what do? You see the state she's in? You probably know people like this. How about another individual who is a professional businessman who has worked his whole life and he's done a great job in supporting his family, he's done a great job in supporting life, and he now retires from the industry. And he realizes that he's now anxious and depressed because his job was his identity. His job was who he was. I once read a statistic that executives that leave Fortune 500 companies and retire, that many of them don't live beyond 6 years of their retirement. That they spiral downward because all of a sudden their value and their worth begins to plummet. Because they had established their whole identity in something that really wasn't who they were. But they no longer knew who they were because they had established their identity. Y'all with me? Mm-hmm. So now I want to share one with you that probably will pluck your heart a little bit. There's this teenage boy. Teenagers, although complex, from this perspective, it's not much, right? He's a student. He's a boyfriend. He's an athlete. He's a sibling. And he's got a part-time job. Like a lot of college kids, or high school kids, right? Pretty common. And, matter of fact, this is sibling. So matter of fact, this is pretty good. I mean, if he did a 360, as a student, he was a 10. As a boyfriend, and homecoming queen. As an athlete, 3 sports. Job, it was just there. I mean, he was good at it. So, I mean, he's good. Everything is good. I gotta put one more circle in there. He's a son. And that's good. I mean, life's good. Then there was this weekend. And I can't remember if it was a homecoming weekend or what it was, but it was really, really important. But at any rate, on Friday, his girlfriend broke up with him. On Friday night, he threw an interception that caused their team not to go to the playoffs. Just should not have happened. On Saturday, his parents told him he was getting a divorce. On Sunday, he committed suicide.
No, way too many people.
Because all of a sudden, it all starts crashing in. It all starts crashing in. Because all of a sudden, if my identity is connected to my being a student and how well I achieve and my athletics and how I do and my girlfriend, and if this is how I attach my identity and my value and worth, and 2/3 of it starts to implode in one weekend, it's like somebody put a vacuum in the center of your chest and just sucked life out of it. And all of a sudden, it's just hopeless. Do you see it? I can do hundreds of circles like this. I could just keep going. I could tell you about married couples who just can't get it working because they're doing it wrong. I can talk to you about people who are in abusive relationships, who the abuser is inside their circle just tearing things up on a daily basis. So if you can understand what I've done so far, then you probably are begging for a different way to see this. There's got to be a different way to see this, and I want to show you what I think the Lord has laid on my heart as a way to do that. And this is what I presented to about 70 high school kids just this last year, is I want you to do one more circle, and I want you to put your name in there. Now, remember all those circles that you put on the inside? Now put them on the outside at the end of a spoke. You might have boyfriend or girlfriend. You might have you're a husband or a wife. You might have it you're a sister, your brother. You might have, see, put those things now on the outside. Now let me ask a question. Why do you think I've put them on the outside? Because what?
They're not your identity.
Because they're not who you are, they're what?
Parts of it.
They're not parts of you even.
Those roles in it.
Because they're roles you play. In my circle, I did not put son. Because both my parents have passed away. But in not being a son, did I lose my identity? No. Was losing my parents painful? Yes. God forbid if Kimberly were to die, I would say that I'm not a husband. But that doesn't mean I've lost my identity. See, we've made the mistake of creating an equal sign, that my identity is equal to the sum total of how good I'm doing in the roles that I play. Hence, if I want to increase my identity, if I want to increase my value, then I must be better at what I'm doing. I got to be a better student. I got to be a better girlfriend. I got to be a better boyfriend. And it's all this pressure to try to make the numbers better, or else I suck. I'm no good. But what if that's not it? What if that can't be it? What if I'm something more than just the roles I play? What if I'm more than the roles I play? So I want you to realize that if all of these circles are on the inside, it's like dropping a bunch of balls in a pinball machine at one time and just watching them just all over the place, creating chaos. But at least, just looking at your circles right now, you can breathe. It's not all messed up. It's not all cluttered on the inside. Now, some of you may be wondering, and Maya as a teenager may be wondering, because when I did this presentation, at Oxford High School this last year, I was taking too much time, and the kids didn't like it being empty. They didn't like that circle being empty. At first, they liked all the stuff being on the outside because they could breathe, because that stuff's suffocating. So giving them permission to put being an athlete and being a student and being a child, putting it on the outside, whew, I can breathe. But then they wanted what goes in there. Because I still need a what? I still need an identity. Absolutely correct. Because we live in every human being needs to know who they are. And if I'm not taught who I am, I will then use all the roles I play as the way to define myself. Do you see it? But it's a lie. It's the wrong way. So the question then is, who am I? Right? So I say that I'm a God created, and I would like to add, as a Christian, redeemed, tenant. That's what I want to do. But I would at least say that, I don't care who you are, you got to say that you're God created. Why? Because if there is a God, and his fingerprints are on my existence, then I matter. I intrinsically matter. No matter who I am. Does that make sense? Because if God doesn't make any junk, then it doesn't matter whether you're a star athlete, or you're a star student, or you're just average in some things. It doesn't matter, because the way that I look at it, and some of you have heard me preach on this, I find it utterly amazing that not even identical twins are identical. That the God of the universe has had billions of people and hundreds of billions of people live and die since Adam and Eve, and never once has he created a duplicate. So in this short life that we live, God is honored and somehow excited about making these human beings that in one sense live on this earth for 70, 80, 90, 100 years, and they're gone, but they're so unique. It's like, not like a diamond who sticks around in a sense. It is like, wow, you make this splash on humanity, you make this splash on the world, and it's bam, you're it. There's no gonna, and so all of a sudden, if someone begins to see themselves for the first time, maybe the way God sees them, it starts to change some things, right? So let's say in these roles that I'm playing, I'm a father, I'm a husband, a pastor. I'll just use a few of these. As a father, if I'm a 5 today, where am I a 5? I'm a 5 as a father. Am I a 5? No. I'm just not being a 5 out there in that role that I play. You see what just happened? Well, wait a minute. Other people tell me I'm worthless because of the way that no. See, that's how God sees it. We need to understand in these roles, we're going to flow from 1s to 10s to 1. They're going to move around a lot. As a husband, today maybe I'm a 9. But does that mean I'm going to be a 9 tomorrow? No. It ebbs and flows. The roles all ebb and flow. Pastor? Oh, come on. There's people that think I'm the next best thing to slice bread. And there's others who can't stand me. It's just the way life is. But it doesn't change who I am. So now, just for a second, go back to the very first circle that we created where we all said that when our mind goes through those milliseconds of math, we start driving a number downward. Right? It's because these roles, if I choose to make them who I am, they will come crashing inward. Right? So think about it for a minute. Remember we said your voice, other people's voices, and comparisons? Go to the middle one. Other people's voices. You ever have anybody in your life tell you that you were less than? Right? What were they trying to do? They were trying to take you and that and push it right into your soul and say, you're nothing, you're not worth it, you're less than. Right? But if it's out here and someone says, you're not being a very good father, although painful, you see it's out here. I can look at it from the outside. I don't have to demoralize myself to try to see it. I can take an honest look at the different roles in my life, and I can actually see with some clarity, where before I couldn't see with clarity because they were all so mingled up inside like those balls in a machine, they were just driving me insane. Right? This is why I worry about teenage kids and the pressure that they're under. Pressures that I didn't experience when I was a teenager. Pressures that I didn't experience when I was in college. They're getting at junior high school levels. And so we, what do we do? And so now what I want you to realize is that the whole thing changes. If I'm a God-created, God-redeemed 10, and I look out at my relationship with Kimberly and I say, man, it's not what it should be. And I start taking an honest look. What becomes the potential?
It will downward spiral because then you start comparing yourself with all the voices that are out there.
Yeah. But if you don't do that, if I see myself as a God-created 10, watch which way the movement goes. The movement goes outward.
Yeah.
So let me ask the question this way. If somebody sees themselves as a 3, and we look at all the roles they have, I'm going to tell you that by a self-fulfilling prophecy, they'll ultimately be no better than a 3 most of the time in any of those outside circles. Because as a man, that negative thing is, if I see myself as that way, how could I ever achieve a higher number anywhere ultimately? But if I see myself as a 10, but I evaluate myself as a 5 today in my relationship as a father, what can I do? I can change some things. Because I'm finally given permission to look at my life as a father, not as part of my identity, but as a role that I play. And then the forces that make me a God-created 10 begin to speak to my life as a father or as a husband, and all of a sudden, all these things move outward. We can't have an honest look at ourselves until we put these things outside of us. Because inside of us, it's too confusing. And when these things start to implode, right? I've done some circles. One of the circles I didn't do is, and this is a very, very, and you probably know people like this, who have aged, and one of the members of the couple dies, and then within 2-3 years, the other one dies. Now, I think part of that is simply because of how hard it hurts, right? But even then, what happens is they become your identity, as opposed to they were your spouse. And so they struggle to find what's next in their lives because there can't be anything next because that person is. Well, no, the person never was intended to be you, right? Even though you become one flesh, that's a completely separate thing than losing your identity. Anytime and I guess put more clearly, what if the only person that has a right to identify you is God? Because he's the one that made you. There isn't a relative, a friend, or even you that has a right to identify you. If God's given you a name, if God has uniquely created you and his fingerprints, his thumbprints are on your existence, they're on you, that you are so unique that he gets thrilled just to watch you wake up. Just wonders what you're going to do with life today. What if we started living? I can't silence the voices, but I can stop comparing. I can. I can choose to stop comparing because it's a lie. One of the truths my dad gave me years ago, Tommy, there will always be someone stronger, faster, someone's going to come. Smarter. Nobody holds a record forever. It gets broken. Right? So it can't be based on the things you do. You got to find who you are. And what if God is the only one that gets to define us? Okay? Does that make sense? Now we're breathing again. Not only breathing, we now see the roles in their proper place, and now we can speak to them. We can address them. Without harming ourselves, we can begin to address the roles. And if one ends, like I said, God forbid if Kimberly passes away, although terribly painful, it doesn't make me less of something. Just as my parents passed away, and right now I'm not a son to a mom and dad who are physically on this earth. Right? All right. So now there's two things that I want to do next. I want to talk about the voices in some of these roles. Let's say that you properly put some of these things on the outside, but you realize that one of them is abusive. It could be husband, it could be wife, it could be brother, sister, it could be friend, it could be... We all have probably, or have had in our lives, somebody who is putting a finger in our chest saying, you're just not. That's the voice I'm talking about. What do I do with that voice? What do I do when that person is connected as a spoke, right? Are y'all with me? So what if I told you today, right now today, that you have the freedom to decide how long a spoke is? That you do not inevitably, because someone is connected to you, put up with abuse or put up with something that's constantly tearing you down just because they're in the circles of your roles. Do you know how many people live going, I just got to put up with this because it just is? What if you don't? What if you actually have the ability to shorten or lengthen these spokes, that you have the ability, the power to do that, to protect yourself? So maybe there's a sibling, husband, wife, maybe there's someone who's supposed to be really, really close. But that person is just a negative to you. That person is constantly forcing you into comparisons. They're constantly hitting you with numbers and making you, they're trying to push all the stuff right into the center of who you are. You have the ability to push that spoke out and create distance. And we could always talk about in counseling ways to do that, because I think too many Christians think, I've got to just be like a doormat and like get walked over. And the answer is no. No, Jesus never got walked. He was probably the most passive individual ever, but also never was a doormat to anybody. I would tell you that you even have the ability to put boundaries on that relationship. I call them the if-thens. You are no longer welcome in my home unless you will not see your grandchildren ever alone until you stop drinking, until you have something under control. Oh no, that's the grandparents. No, it's abusive individuals who are affecting your life and eventually the roles of your children, the identity of your children. It's loving to do it because you want them to change. You don't let them live in it. You don't codependently let it keep going. You're actually loving them by putting the boundary in place because you're trying to wake them up and see that there's got to be change. In the same time, you're protecting you and you're protecting those around you. I have shared this one truth, that you have the ability to control the length of the spoke, or eventually even erase it. That's the hugest if-then. Until somebody changes, we don't have a relationship. I love you and I will pray for you, relationship's over. Does it hurt? Yeah, it's like a divorce. It's like a death. But it's probably one of the most powerful things a human being can do, because you've stood up for your identity. You've stood up for who you are. You've said to the abuser, you are not in control of me. You are not going to constantly beat me down as the way of our relationship. Done. Done. Until you see me as a God-created, God-redeemed 10, I'm stopping your ability to do damage. You with me? One more. One more. And we'll do it this way. This is particularly for junior high and high school kids who are living in their circles. So here you got teen number 1, and you got teen number 2, and you got these spokes, and they intertwine, some of them, but then there's other ones that are not. And I, in particular, want to talk about the subject of bullying. I said in the early part of this presentation that this only works if you see yourself as God created. If Team 1 sees themselves as simply an evolved animal, that I have no uniqueness, I've got no special thumbprint, there's no uniqueness in me, I'm just part of the DNA, I'm just part of this process, and so are you. The key is there's no uniqueness, there's no sacredness. Then why not play survival of the fittest? Why not play the game? I'm going to destroy you before you destroy me. I'm going to blast you on Facebook before you blast me on Facebook. You hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you worse. I'm telling you, that's the natural progression. Why not do that? That's exactly what should happen. We're all surprised. We're watching kids be really mean to each other, and we're going, well, that's not good. But why are we surprised? It's how animals work. It's how it is the very identity. He gets his identity in being a bully. He feels power. He feels strength. He identifies himself. He wants to be a bully. Could be because he's bullied at home. It could be whatever it is. So he's trying to protect an identity. And so he's bashing on things and bashing on people, or she. And we want to know how to stop that. Well, how you stop that is to say, if this person is God created, and this person is God created, then each individual is holy ground. We're messing in a place that maybe we shouldn't be messing. And then all of a sudden, when something happens out here in a circle, you find a different way to deal with it because that person is unique. That person's special, just like you're special. It demands a different approach. I'm not going to just blister you on Facebook. I'm not just going to destroy you. I'm not just going to eat you up. I'm just not going to do it because that's not what you would do to something that's unique. Do you know how much money is raised in America to protect baby seals?
Too much.
Protect puppies?
Yeah.
And it's not wrong.
No, it's not.
But why? Because we see them as helpless and sacred and important, and so we do it. But we don't tell human beings to see each other the same way.
Never understood.
And so all of a sudden, it starts to tumble and starts to fall. So, but what if all of a sudden there's a mutual respect? What if there's a sacredness in the relationships? What if there is this idea that we can restore our differences? I mean, you can give me $1 million to teach this if you want, but maybe it doesn't need $1 million. It just needs people to see different. You could change things in a school district, in a high school. You could change things immediately by just giving kids permission to see themselves differently. And then see the person next to you differently. Right? Imagine what happened a year ago, not less than a year ago, when I was at Oxford High School teaching kids for 50 minutes. I mean, I had guys in the room crying. For the first time ever, giving themselves permission to see themselves as they ought to. For the first time ever, feeling unique. Feeling that their identity was somehow not in these crazy roles that they can't hold up. And once I got them to feel that, I said, now look at the person next to you. They're as vulnerable as you. They're sacred too. How dare you treat them any differently than you would want to be treated? And I could feel it. I could feel in the room. When I was done, all these kids coming up going, oh my gosh, you've got to do this again, you've got to say that. They were hearing truth for the first time in ever maybe. But this is the only way that we're going to affect change. Is that we see ourselves as tens. We see other people as tens. That doesn't mean they always act like one. But neither do you. Neither do I. But that doesn't give me the right to obliterate you. What gives me the right is to confront you and ask why you treated me not unique. Right? What a humble way to go to someone and say, man, that hurt. Does this make sense? All right. Steve, let's shut off the video. Thank you, everyone, by the way, who sees this.
Okay.